Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. What I'd like to say before anything else is, I was in Louis Gohmert's office a couple years ago, and he has a little thing that memorializes the treaty between America and Britain at the end of the Revolutionary War. And you know who the witness of that document was in writing? The Holy Spirit. So the question that people have to ask themselves, I mean, I grew up, I think we all grew up, God and country. And when did that stop being the rule? And why did it stop being the rule? And how did it get so far? What I'm going to do, what I do in Unconstrained Analytics is today we take a look at issues from a political warfare perspective. So this is not going to be a political analysis. You get that from people better than me at that. We're not going to look at it theologically because that's not my area here at all. But we are going to say, if we were looking at this like we looked at a foreign country, how it would define it. And we're going to run with it. So political warfare is the Maoist insurgency model. And our position is that is the dominant form of the left that occupies the United States right now. As relates to this discussion, what I really want to point out is that one of the things that exist, if you read the books at colleges or universities about critical race theory or intersectionality, you read too much. And what we want to do is get people to understand it's much more simple. But if you really understood how simple it was, you would simply know how to fight back. So what is intersectionality? That is to take a value that it's held in a culture, okay? And they're going to make up a phony term. And then they're going to give that term every negative attribute they can come up with that they're focusing. So patriotic Christians will become now Christian nationalists, and it will be defined negatively. And the point will be in the media to collide the one with the other in what would be called in the language of Marxism a negation. And it's as simple as that. So what they do is they create these intersectional lines of operation. Black Lives Matter. What does that do? It attacks on race. LGBT says that we demand that you accept our metaphysical claim of gender over the scientifically verified fact in biology of sex. That's what this is all about. And it's all about intimidating people. They don't care that they get their fellow travelers to say, you know, LGBTQ and let their children go to a litter box in a school. They have won in their mind when they got you to accept it by not doing anything about it. So what I'm going to do is, instead of over-engineering all of this, I'm just going to take things that they have said, and I'm going to focus on Jemar Tisby and Bob Roberts, because they're some of the leading voices in this. And I want you to know how they define it in their own words. Is that fair enough? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of go across the leading piece there, and when a percentage of the people here lift their heads up, we'll go to the next slide. Fair enough? So, Christian nationalism is an information campaign designed to synchronize with January 6 narratives, the January 6 narrative. Reading these Twitter feeds, three things will emerge. One, they say what they think, so you really don't have to assess what they're saying at this level of analysis. Two, they're broadcasting it openly through Twitter and in the media. We're seeing that. And three, the little political warfare point, is they are so confident that they're in charge, they're engaging what's called open communication. They're not worried that you underheard what they said, because they're reasonably confident that even if you understood what they said was not right, you're not going to know quite what they meant. So here's one on Jemar Tisby, and I'll just let you read that. Has to do with January 6th. And now we'll move to the next one. It directly attacks American Christians for being American Christians, for being politically active. As such, it's an attack on identity. It denies your right to say that you're an American, that you're a Christian. Think about it. LGBT says you're not allowed to call yourself a woman if you're a woman, or a man if you're a man. When you add up all these intersectional lines of attack, they have destroyed your ability to call yourself a person. And that is the objective. So, Christian nationalism is also designed to synchronize with the New York Times 1619 Project. The objective, to alienate and disenfranchise Christians from their own history. Do you think that's kind of happening? You now have to take classes in a place like a church to find out what your American history is anymore. And your kids are being told something that gets them so spun up, you can't even talk to your kids. That is an outcome. Whether directly or indirectly, the Christian nationalism narrative is designed to tie into Marxist critical race theory efforts that identify all American institutions as racists. As noted, it's an intersectional line of effort. And of course, these are their own words. The narrative is delegitimizing along Christian lines. Reverend Roberts and his Multi-Faith Neighbors Network has powerful international tie-ins. Roberts likens American Christians to a grifting class of money changers at the temple. If I'm going too fast, just say. The goal is to see what they're saying in their own words. Suggesting that Christians who defend themselves, the institutions they created, their values and their way of life is unchristian for that reason. Suggesting that Christians do not have a right to defend themselves and their way of life. Implying maybe with cause that Republican leadership is just as anxious and alienated from its own base as is the left. After all, Reverend Roberts' Multi-Faith Neighbors Network appears to have Lincoln Project tie-ins. We had to break this graphic into two. So there's the one, Holiday, ambassador, and here he is with the Lincoln Project. And not just a little support from the White House. For Tisby, the people who created the American Republic are America's greatest threat to America's Republic, precisely because they don't want to make it a democratic, by which I mean Marxist, republic. America's Christian roots are being reduced to mythologies, a first step in delegitimizing a people's history in furtherance of disenfranchising them from it. Remember, the total separation of you from your own identity. Gaslighting the values of American Christians based on assumptions that are then turned into facts and then declared erroneous. Watch the kind of the weasel language, perceived. We perceive that they do this, but the rest of the sentence is treated as if it's a fact to attack you. Appears to be unmoored from traditional Christian ideals. Do you see that at the bottom of Tisby's attacks? This is Jamar Tisby. They're really gaslighting campaigns. There's nothing to them. Accusations based on manufactured perceptions, consequentialists. What do they mean by that? They'll do anything to win. Clearly, America's Christians are dangerously untethered and are tilting to extremism, a clear indicator of downstream terrorism. And this feeds into the violent extremism narrative that was put into place going way back that we had many battles with. You remember that? This is how the violent extremism narrative is going to come into play. And it won't be used against bin Laden in Iraq. It's designed to be used against you. So, simply paranoid and undone, that's you, isn't it? Just take a look at yourself. When Christians mobilize politically to defend their constitutionally protected way of life, it's described in covert conspiratorial terms. Again, gaslighting. And lest the gaslighting campaign is not clear enough, beneath every Christian nationalist is a seething racist seeking to seek revenge upon an unsuspecting population. I had to break this in two so you see that Tisby's message was about a little child who, wants to grow up and shoot people. Of course, that's just the message. I just think it's really important for you to get a sense for how these people communicate this in their own words so that you can get a feel for it, because it's a little slick. You can easily say, well, I was only talking about perceptions. Maybe I'll change my mind. And what he's really saying is I'm going to have to up my game. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for your time, and I hope this was helpful.